So let's get started. Today, Happy New Year, Happy New You. This is the first wellness, the spiritual wellness circle. I'm going to add that from time to time because we're aligning our mind, body, and spirit. 2020 went out like a lion, and 2021 has come in also like a lion. I've talked to a lot of people, and you may be having crazy dreams, interesting stuff coming out, visions, epiphanies, intuition. It's sort of common because the whole planet, right, is in this energy of it's a new year. And we had these great expectations for this new year and manifesting and bringing new things into our life. And hold on a second, my computer's going crazy. And just starting new and fresh. And that's where I want to start because this energetic type of place that we're in, let's not let go of it just because the world is going crazy. We can actually continue to ride this to a greater and bigger place. So this is Second Sundays. Why did I say Sundays? Second Saturdays. Every second Saturday of the month, I have this wellness talk. It's typically for people who follow me and are patrons who are in my Patreon. That's patreon.com/remarkable wellness. But I often send the invitations out to other people so that they can get familiar with this conversation, that it might be a benefit. And so I welcome all of you who have joined, who maybe this is the first time or you don't normally participate or you're not even in Patreon, but I just wanted to sort of spread the love. And then also hopefully you will come back, or we're going to do a wellness journey again later. That's a 60-day wellness journey. So welcome to Second Saturdays. So on Friday nights, here's my little introduction. On Friday nights, we have a happy hour every Friday night at 5 o'clock. Sometimes there's a few people, sometimes there's a lot of people. There's a nice, like last night, there was a nice number. And we tend to talk about current events, talk some trash, have a drink, laugh. And it's more so worldly, like what happened on the Capitol, what's happening this, about relationships. Last night was outstanding. I call it happy hour, but it went like 3 hours. I just let it go till it wants to go, but I've been intentional about cutting it off at 8. Sometimes I'll cut it off early. So it's a really great conversation. People are just flowing. But that conversation is more worldly, right? And we bring, because we're all sort of a part of this community that's a more higher consciousness, that we're all sort of striving for enlightenment, transformation, and inner peace. That's what we're going for. That we still bring that part into the conversation. So we'll disagree, but we're respectful. And we'll laugh, and it's often shocking. But because we are caring, loving, in accordance, it's always all good. But on Saturdays, in another conversation, so today is more of a spiritual conversation. So we connect more in the spiritual, in the higher realm, and that's so when we can download it and bring it into our worldly conversation. So today is the upside down, that 100-degree sort of difference than what we would do with a drink on Friday nights. So we're going to go into more of a spiritual conversation. What we're going to do is keep cameras and everything off. If you have questions or anything, hold on to them, put them in the chat, take some notes, and then at the end, we open it up for a full conversation. For questions, whatever you want to talk about, what we talked about, did it make sense or not? So this year, right now, we're talking about radical and sustainable self-care. And you are a clean slate every day. And I started this at the end of last year. Why do we wait for a new year, for January 1st, for the calendar to turn from 20 to 21? Or why are we always starting something new on Monday or on the first of the month? Every day is a new beginning. Every minute, every instant right now is a brand new, fresh beginning. So I want us to start taking that in and getting like, we can be refreshed and renewed right now. The past does not define us. And that is the first the biggest sort of radical way of looking at self-care. It is in the moment. It is now. It is always possible, always potential, always beginning. So we're at a new beginning right now. Happy new you, happy new year. Always sort of dream a new dream. And so I want you to take that thought, if you're taking notes or writing things, that's the first thing. Take that thought captive and become obedient to that. That my self-care, my health, wealth promotion is always renewing itself in every instant. And I don't have to wait till tomorrow morning or Monday or whatever. Those are sort of just human constructs that we put out there to give us a gap so we can sort of build up or do whatever. But we don't have to do that. Now is the time. So I'm encouraging all of us to sort of breathe that in and be encouraged and just happy. Like, we'll start to let that joy of, I'm gonna forget about tomorrow. I'm gonna forget about yesterday. I'm gonna forget about tomorrow too. I'm going to be into the power of now, into the present. So today we're going to elevate the concept, and I took some really great notes. So I'm gonna be on fire today. At least I have some energy, and I hope you guys are going to be able to receive it. So again, and I'll have points. Keep your notes or questions or anything handy, because we're going to have a great conversation if you wish. So we're going to elevate the concept of self-care. We're going to talk about self with a capital S, not self-care. It is not. We're not talking about taking baths and lighting candles. That's the self with the little s. That's your body. The S, the capital S, just like when you capitalize God or Him, the H when you're talking about God. The self-care we're talking about is the God, that spirit, that power within you that connects to the universe, that connects with the mind of God and the power of all that is. That is the ultimate self-care. And like I said, then that can download into the little self and help inform and guide the decisions that you make every day. That is sustainable self-care. That is radical self-care. When you're taking care of the higher self, the self within that is aligned and connected with God. Please get that. That's where we're going, because and we've talked, some of us on this call have talked about, self-care is overused now. It's like no one even, and it's not even how we meant. Again, like just the candles in the back. Those are good things too. They can be very meditative. They can put you in that alignment. They sort of open the door to the space where we want to let divine wisdom come in. But the real self that we want to give care, nurture, give all of our attention and let guide and lead our life is the self with a capital S. And that's what we're doing today. We're talking radical self and sustainable, because at this level it's sustainable. Okay. And I hope that when you're feeling that, like, that's pretty wonderful. We're elevating, we're getting out of the small concept, and that's what we do in these wellness conversations with TK Inspirations, remarkable wellness. So we're taking it to this higher level, and it just even feels good to get there and talk about it. So I want to take time, as I do at the beginning of all these talks, to bring your awareness to your true self, into this oneness, what God is, where we're all connected, this unity, so that when we're connected, you're able to absorb, receive easily, open and beautifully like a sieve. So let's just do a mini meditation. Just sort of close your eyes. Get comfortable. Take a deep breath. And take a few more on your own. I see a bright light in the center of my mind that expands and covers every space around me, through me, within and without. I see peace. I feel brilliant. This is the light of God. In this light, we're all joined, our higher selves, as a thought of God. And a thought never leaves its source. Here, peace and understanding are home. Let the peace of God flow over you, through you, to me, through me, to you. We take all of this inside of our own self so that we can receive the understanding that walks hand in hand with inner peace. I bring this light back into my body and receive, and I am open, at peace to understanding. And so it is. Slowly open your eyes. So now we're all juicy and ready to sort of take in and elevate our higher self is already elevated, but to meet it, and so to come back and live the best life. So what is the teaching? What is there to understand that will help allow us to start and create this new year unencumbered? Not stuck, not angry, not afraid or scared or worried. How do we feed our inner spirit and nurture it so that we can go boldly and peacefully forward into everything that is? So getting rid of that fog, becoming more enlightened, and just self-care. And remember, take that concept with the capital S. That is what we're focusing on. That is what is enduring and sustainable. How do we get rid of the old and go forward with being content and full of light? So the teaching is, I want to take this time, instead of me, coming up with my own content. We talked about this last night. I'm always trying to sort of take what I've learned and then meet people where they are and sort of build a bridge. And I'll do my own sort of interpretation or translation or whatever. But today, I want to introduce you to A Course in Miracles, because when I was preparing for today, this morning, this is my morning meditation. So I want to tell you what it is and how it's going to help with sustainable self-care. Like, what is the point? This is A Course in Miracles. And you see, I've been working this book for a while. What is it? It has 3 parts. It has the text, which is 669 pages. It has the workbook, which is 448 pages, and it has a manual for teachers at the back, which is 92 pages. The workbook part is 365 lessons, and they're meditations, basically. And this is my second time going through the workbook. I'm still finishing the text. It's taken 4 years. It's 669 pages because it's not something that you read like a novel. You read it, you get some wisdom, you chew on it, you apply it to your life. It's theoretical, and then you come back and then you can understand more, because you can't just get it. This is a path to enlightenment, a path to inner peace. It's the foundation for inner peace. That's the whole goal. What do we want? We want inner peace. We want happiness. We don't do anything unless we think we'll be better for it. I mean, that's why we want a bigger house or a soulmate, you know, a love, or that's why we do anything, is because we think it'll bring us happiness and joy. And so this course is chock full of wisdom. Right now, it's talking to me. Every time I have an issue, and I have had some lately, I'm closing a business that I've invested everything I have into for the last 4 years. I'm doing a lot of stuff is going on. The world, the virus, I mean, everything is happening. And every time I get discouraged or let my guard down, get angry, my lesson in my, when I focus on my big self and not my little self, in that instant, I get free. I get clarity, like the wisdom comes. The more you do that, one moment after one moment after one, you string it all together. This is sustainable self-care. This is radical, beautiful self-care that can carry you through, not just through 2021, but the rest of your life. And that is the point. They said this is the beginning. It leads you to a place of understanding, of opening to your own understanding. And then it says that God will come and take you the rest of the way. There's only so much it can do. Like it doesn't teach love. That is beyond what can be taught. It teaches you how to access, to open up, to what I use my terms is wash the windows and take the veil down so that you can be open and visible to love. So I'm still going through it. I'm 80% through the text. It's taken 4 years. I'm going to get through it this year because now it's accelerating. My understanding is accelerating and I can understand more. So I can read maybe 5 pages at a time or 10 pages. Before I would take a paragraph and I was like, let me back up off of that and sit down because I have to think about that for a while. And it's one of those these lifetime books and courses that you would have in your library, on your table. Very, very powerful. So I'm going to tell you what it says. So that's what it is. And I want to tell you what it says in summary. So I'm going to do a reading. I'm going to read from it. And I'm going to read I'm going to read it. I'm going to read what it says, the summary in the beginning of the book. This is 3.5 pages. Again, very powerful. And this is the lesson. This is radical, sustainable self-care, the self that is God within you, that's connected to God, unity, that's connected, my God within me is connected to the God within you. That there's no problems there, that when you're on a spiritual level. And so it's going to become more clear as I read it. And it is a lot to chew on. So I have on my own given the sections that I'm going to speak to numbers. This is all in the preface. This isn't even page 1. So this is going to be how deep and heavy this is. But we're not going to play baby games this year. I'm just going to put it all out there. And you're going to see the types of wisdom. And it's going to open you up in different ways, piece by piece. So I'm just going to start reading it. As I broke it into sections so that you can write down which section resonated with you. And if you have any questions, then at the end, you could say, I want to talk about section 1 again. Or could you reread this section 5? Or whatever. I broke it down into 8 sections. And I'm going to read it. I'm going to comment a little bit in between. And I'm very, very much looking forward to conversation. I know a few people, I think maybe 1 or 2 have done the course or at least are familiar with it. Maybe people, I know some have started it and then just had to put it down, just wasn't their time. That's okay. And I'm going to tell you what the book says about that too, which is, it's all good. It's all fine. So what it says, nothing real can be threatened. Nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of God. This is how A Course of Miracles begins. Now remember, I'm reading you the preface that was written later just to sort of give some context for what it is. So this is a preface enlightening us as to what the Course is about. This is what it says. It makes a fundamental distinction between the real and the unreal, between knowledge and perception. Knowledge is truth under one law, the law of love or God. Truth is unalterable, eternal, and unambiguous. It can be unrecognized, but it cannot be changed. It applies to everything that God created, and only what He created is real. It is beyond learning because it is beyond time and process. It has no opposite, no beginning, and no end. It merely is. That's section 1. When you hear people talking about this is an illusion, or that's not real, or this is what we're talking about, this is the concept in higher consciousness conversation, that the truth doesn't change. This, when your perception, I'm gonna get ahead of this, but the perception of what's going on, the things that change and come and go, that's not true. That's just your opinion of what's going on. But only it with God is what's true. And when we connect with God, with our higher self, our capital S self, then we're dealing in reality and what's true. Otherwise, we're dealing in the illusions of other people's opinions. I really wanted to put that out there because I had someone I was talking to a few weeks ago, and I said the rest is just an illusion. And she was like, well, I don't get that part, but I'll deal with the rest. We can talk about that later. So I think just setting that definition of what we mean, like what's real, what's not, what's a dream. We did the spiritual Dream a New Dream series last year. It's important to set that context. So that's part 1. The world of perception, on the other hand, is the world of time, of change, of beginnings and endings. It is based on interpretation, not facts. It is the world of birth and death, founded on the belief in scarcity, loss, separation, and death. It is learned rather than given, selective in its perceptual emphases, unstable in its functioning, and inaccurate in its interpretations. That's still that's the end of part 1, as I said. Let that sink. So your perceptions are unstable. They're typically based on some scarcity, what someone did to me, took from me, who did. That's perception. So just being able to separate and understand a little bit anyway, the difference between what we're calling the truth, which is God, the source, knowledge, the big self, and then perception in the world. What we're doing, all of this is just my perception. This is what I'm calling section 2. From knowledge and perception, respectively, 2 distinct thought systems arise, which are opposite in every respect. In the realm of knowledge, no thoughts exist apart from God, because God and His creation share one will. The world of perception, however, is made by the belief in opposites and separate wills, in perpetual conflict with each other and with God. What perception sees and hears appears to be real because it permits into awareness only what conforms to the wishes of the perceiver. We see what we want to see. We hear what we want to see. Hear. If we don't like what you say, you wrong. That's perception. This leads to a world of illusions, a world which needs constant defense precisely because it's not real. Because if it was real, it would be the truth. It would be constant. We wouldn't have any complaints. When you have been caught in a world of perception, you are caught in a dream. When I reread this and loved it, because we just did the Dream a New Dream series. Again, this is in the preface. Yeah. You cannot escape without help, because everything your senses show merely witnesses to the reality of the dream. God has provided the answer, the only way out, the true helper. It is the function of His voice, the Holy Spirit, to mediate between the 2 worlds. Meditation, alignment, what is Spirit telling me? That's the alignment is the word I always use, or being congruent, but to mediate between the 2 worlds. He can do this because while on the one hand, He knows the truth, on the other, He also recognizes our illusions, but without believing in them. It is the Holy Spirit's goal to help us escape from the dream world by teaching us how to reverse our thinking. Think about what you think about. Unlearn what you learn. And unlearn our mistakes. Forgiveness is the Holy Spirit's great learning aid in bringing this thought reversal about. However, the Course has its own definition of what forgiveness really is, just as it defines the world in its own way. Now I'm going into section 3. The world we see merely reflects our own internal frame of reference, the dominant ideas, wishes, and emotions in our minds. Projection makes perception. We look inside first, decide what kind of world we want to see, and then project that world outside, making it the truth as we see it. We make it true by our own interpretations of what it is we are seeing. If we are using perception to justify our own mistakes, our anger, our impulses to attack, our love in whatever form it may take, we'll see a world of evil and destruction, malice, envy, and despair. All this we must learn to forgive, not because we're being good or charitable, but because what we are seeing is not true. We have distorted the world by our twisted defenses and therefore seeing what is not there. As we learn to recognize our perceptual errors, we also learn to look past them or forgive. At the same time, we are forgiving ourselves, looking past our distorted self-concepts to the self that God created in us and as us. Now, all that I have highlighted, underlined, starred, everything. That's worth going back and reading, talking about a million times. But essentially, again, this is just a summary of all this meat and juice in this book. So we'll take in what we can take in. But again, sort of looking at forgiveness, and that's just not because you're good or charitable that you forgive people. You do it because we have a distorted view of the world. And as we learn to recognize these perceptual errors, when we look past our own error of perception, that's forgiveness. And we do that so then we can nurture our true self and align and be congruent with God, with the big S, with the universe. And use whatever language you want to. Universe, spirit, God, the all that is what I'm talking about. And I never want us to get hung up on language. Sin is defined as a lack of love. Since love is all there is, sin in the sight of the Holy Spirit is a mistake to be corrected rather than an evil to be punished. I say this all the time. I hate the word sin because in Christianity or some other religions as well, it's this term that makes people feel like you just like, oh my God, you're unredeemed, and if you don't correct that, you're going to hell and you're going to burn in eternal damnation. This is a total different view of sin. It is saying it's a lack of love. Since love is all there is, sin in the sight of the Holy Spirit is simply a mistake to be corrected. You're just not getting it, so it's just an error. It's not some, just like this damnation that you. So when you come against challenges and issues, it's to correct the error. It's not. It's love. It's loving. I think that's so important. We talk about it all the time. Our sense of inadequacy, weakness, and incompletion comes from the strong investment in the scarcity principle. This helped me this morning because I was robbed yesterday. In a sense, and I had to get over it because I was feeling, oh my God, I don't have this anymore. Oh, and it was the scarcity principle. But anyway, comes from this scarcity principle that governs the whole world of illusions. From that point of view, we seek in others what we feel is wanting in ourselves. We love another in order to get something ourselves. That, in fact, is what passes for love in the dream world. There can be no greater mistake than that, for love is incapable of asking for anything. Now, this is deep. We had some of this conversation last night. This is a lot to chew on, and it'll take a minute. But when we're living in scarcity, we often want to rely on others to make us feel good about ourselves. So our self-worth gets diminished. In the higher self, you don't have to rely on anyone to make you feel good because you're living in love. So no one can rob me of my money, my sense of self-worth, or anything else in the highest sense, in the dream, it's an illusion, it's a mistake. But in the highest sense, when we're nurturing and in alignment, we recognize that. And how do we do it? Through forgiveness. That's why forgiveness runs all through this book, this concept of how to do this. So section 4, only minds can really join, and whom God has joined, no man can put asunder. It is, however, only at the level of Christ's mind that the true union is possible. And Christ, it is, again, this isn't a religious text, but it does use Christian terminology. It's saying Christ meaning the appointed or anointed. Is, like Jesus, the Christ. There's other people who have been appointed and use the term Christ. So it's a little bit of a distinction I want to make sure, because this is non-denominational. It is, however, only at the Christ's mind that the true union is possible and has, in effect, never been lost. The little I, I'm going to call it the little s, the little self, the little I, seeks to enhance itself by external approval, external possessions, and external love. The self, and here it's capitalized, the self that God created needs nothing. It is forever complete, safe, loved, and loving. It seeks to share rather than to get, to extend rather than to project. It has no needs and wants to join with others out of their mutual awareness of abundance. The special relationships of the world are destructive, selfish, and childishly egocentric. Yet, if given to the Holy Spirit, these relationships can become the holiest things on earth, the miracles that point the way to the return to heaven. And I think about that, like we all have our own path and problems, but we can use these illusions, these problems, these misguided perceptions, and use them as the pathway in to align to our higher self. And that's self-care. That's really self-care, because you're caring for what matters, and then it's in return, it's coming through and caring for the little self. The world uses its special relationships as a final weapon of exclusion and a demonstration of separateness. The Holy Spirit transforms them into perfect lessons in forgiveness and in awakening from the dream. Each one is an opportunity to let perceptions be healed and errors corrected. That's what I'm saying. That's what I get from this. Each one is another chance to forgive oneself by forgiving the other. And each one becomes still another invitation to the Holy Spirit and to the remembrance of God. That was section 4. I'm starting section 5. Perception is a function of the body and therefore represents a limit on awareness. Perception sees through the body's eyes and hears through the body's ears. It evokes the limited responses which the body makes. The body appears to be largely self-motivated and independent, yet it actually responds only to the intentions of the mind. If the mind wants to use it for attack in any form, it becomes prey to sickness, age, and decay. If the mind accepts the Holy Spirit's purpose for it instead, it becomes a useful way of communicating with others, invulnerable as long as it is needed, and to be gently laid aside when its use is over. Of itself, it is neutral, as is everything in the world of perception. Whether it is used for the goals of the ego or of the Holy Spirit depends entirely on what the mind wants. Put a pause here. That was section 5. We have been talking about your thoughts are units of energy. Your mind creates. You are not your body. You are spirit. Your body, like time, are just pieces of the world. They're the effects of what your mind is doing. So when you control your thoughts, when you're mindful, when you think about what you think about, then you're in the act of co-creating. That's where it is. People want to get caught up on body shaming, and when you're blaming someone, you're looking at their body. You're in the physical. We want to connect with the higher self, and my higher self is connected with your higher self, and in that place there's no worry. So when you get out of this physical body part, let me keep going. I'm mostly done. Part 6. The opposite of seeing through the body's eyes is the vision of Christ, which reflects strength rather than weakness, unity rather than separation, and love rather than fear. The opposite of hearing through the body's ears is communication through the voice of God, the Holy Spirit, which abides in each of us. That is the bigger self, the big I, the higher self. We want to use that voice. We want to hear with those ears, not these, not see with these eyes. That's the self that we want, this remarkable self-care. The opposite of hearing through the body's ears is communication through the voice of God, the Holy Spirit, which abides in each of us. His voice seems distant and difficult to hear because the ego, which speaks for the little separated self, small s, seems to be much louder. This is actually reversed. The Holy Spirit speaks with unmistakable clarity and with overwhelming appeal. No one who does not choose to identify with the body could possibly be deaf to his messages of release and hope, nor could he fail to accept joyously the vision of God in glad exchange for this miserable picture of himself. Part 7. Remember, I have 8 parts, so we're getting it. We're starting part 7. Christ's vision is the Holy Spirit's gift, God's alternative to the illusion of separation and to the belief in the reality of sin, guilt, and death. It is the one correction for all errors of perception, the reconciliation of the seeming opposites on which this world is based. Its kindly light shows all things from another point of view, reflecting the thought system that arises from knowledge and making return to God not only possible, but inevitable. When we do things, it is impossible not to succeed. But it is that practice. It is the way. It is this nurturing of yourself that is sustainable. And there's a trust, there's a faith that goes with this. What was regarded as injustices done to someone else now become a call for help and for union. And so, again, I was feeling recently and yesterday like an injustice had been done. And I tell you, when you come back and start to absorb some of this, it's like, no, that's in the physical, because forget him. Just forget. I'm making a choice, a decision. I'm going to nurture my higher self. And then I realized I'm not diminished by doing that. No one can take advantage of me unless in my mind I feel taken advantage of. It's a lot, I know, but hang in there. Sin, sickness, and attack are seen as misperceptions calling for remedy through gentleness and love. Defenses are laid down because where there is no attack, there is no need for them. Our brother's need becomes our own because they are taking the journey with us as we go to God. Without us, they would lose their way. Without them, we could never find our own. All of these things are happening between us, within one another, whether it's justice, injustice, however you want. This would say they're all neutral, but they're all happening to help us get to this realization that we're talking about now. So that's what I mean, all things work for your good. The universe is for you when you can grasp, when you start to get this. And it's a practice, because at the moment when things happen, it's like, okay, I'm mad, and it's like, oh, well, how is that working for me? I may not understand how it's working for me, but when I understand these higher principles, it's not for me to understand everything. I just need to keep my eye on God, on my higher self. I need to align there, and then I'm going to let the one who knows all work everything else out. Section 8. Forgiveness is unknown in heaven, where the need for it is inconceivable. However, in this world, forgiveness is a necessary correction for all the mistakes that we have made. To offer forgiveness is the only way for us to have it, for it reflects the laws of heaven that giving and receiving are the same. So this person I'm forgiving, who I was mad at, the only way I could even get past to nurture my higher self, to connect with it or to hear what my higher self was saying, was to forgive it, to forgive. And again, the definition of this forgiveness is not because I'm good or charitable. I've said it before, it's in my own self-interest to forgive. It is for me to understand and put it aside, this ego-centric noise and crap, so that I can connect with God and where all is good and well, and get my true messages and guide me in a better way. So I'm letting that get out of my way. I am forgiving so I can speed up on my path so I can excel and just transcend and get to that place of inner peace quicker, faster in each instant. This instant. So today I'm happy. This would have taken me months to get over. I probably would be in litigation by the end of the year. I'm happy right now. Like you get to this it's a miracle. It's a course in miracles, a change in perception. So heaven is the natural state of all the sons of God as he created them. Such is their reality forever. It has not changed because it has not been forgotten. Forgiveness is the means by which we will remember. Through forgiveness, the thinking of the world is reversed. I'm not diminished because you did something. You can't take advantage of me. Normally it would be, he did this to me. He took advantage. It's 180 degrees different. The thinking of forgiveness in the world is 180 degrees different in forgiveness. Through forgiveness, the thinking of the world is reversed. The forgiven world becomes the gate of heaven because by its mercy, we can at last forgive ourselves. Holding no one prisoner to guilt, we become free. Acknowledging Christ in all of our brothers, we recognize his presence in ourselves. That's the giving and receiving. Forgetting all of our misperceptions and with nothing from the past to hold us back, we can remember God. Beyond this, learning cannot go. When we are ready, God himself will take the final step in our return to him. That is what this course is about. That few pages, that 8 section, this whole thing is theoretical and practical so that we can reinforce it. Because it's easy to say, forgive someone. Then it's like, well, what does forgiveness mean? Well, how can I forgive that? And so it's a practice and it's a study, and you go deeper and deeper, and it takes you higher and higher. But the concepts within themselves, whether you decide to become a student of A Course in Miracles or not, hopefully it's opening your eyes to a way in God's Spirit. It's not the only way, clearly. There's many ways, but will lead you to some other book, person, teacher, concept, or lead you deeper into this in our conversations so that you can practice that sustainable and radical self-care with the large S to keep going. So I'm going to read you page 1. I'm mindful of the time because I want to leave time to talk. Page 1 of A Course in Miracles is it's the introduction. Now, that was the preface. That's how heavy this is. That all that wisdom, and we're not even at page 1 now. Here's page 1, introduction. This is A Course in Miracles. It is a required course. Only the time you take it is voluntary. Free will does not mean that you can establish the curriculum. It means only that you can elect what you want to take at a given time. The course does not aim at teaching the meaning of love, for that is beyond what can be taught. It does aim, however, at removing the blocks to awareness of love's presence, which is your natural inherence. The opposite of love is fear, but what is all-encompassing can have no opposite. This course can therefore be summed up very simply in this way. Nothing real can be threatened. Nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of God. Now, I'm going to let you guys sit with all of that for a hot second and just say, I always love this. This is a required course. Only the time you take it is voluntary. Free will does not mean that you can establish the curriculum. It means that you can only elect what you want to take at a given time. If you think about it, it's saying the way to yourself, to the God within you, to inner peace, there's a curriculum. It consists of love and forgiveness and all of that. You can't not take the course. That's what life is about. All of these challenges in our life experiences are leading us. It's part of our curriculum. Now, how quickly you want to ascend and transform and walk your path to enlightenment, how quickly you want to take the course is up to you. You can be evil and mean and unforgiving, and you can stay stuck maybe for many, many lifetimes. So that's what it's saying. Like, it's a required course. Every human being is going to go through it. Now, it's like going to college. So I have an accounting degree. There's many schools out there that have accounting degrees. So we can all, the curriculum is the curriculum. I can't establish the curriculum now, but how long I want it to take to get that degree, I could accelerate it and finish a 4-year degree in 3 years, or maybe it'll take me 5 or 6 years. So it's saying you have free will to choose. You have free will to choose how long it's going to take you and what you're going to do. But it's still going to be there. The course is there if you're searching for inner peace, which who isn't? So I wanted to definitely make that because I just love how this, and then this whole part, nothing real can be threatened and nothing unreal exists. It took me years to really figure out what that meant, actually sort of soaking this in a real way. But that's what it's saying, like nothing real, the higher self can't be threatened. So therefore nothing unreal exists. All this stuff, that this pettiness and anger and all that, it doesn't even exist. Again, talking about the illusion. So I can talk about it in that way now, way more like juicy, comfortably taking it in. And so that is what, of course, and that is what I'm going to say today in a nutshell, in a huge, huge way, so everyone can go away and take away pieces. And I know if you didn't get any nuggets or whatever, we should talk. Maybe we could have a one-on-one, because I mean it's just chock full of wisdom, and that is radical self-care. When you spend the time to understand, what's true, what's perception, let go of these perceptions that are causing you pain, focus more on the truth. How do you do that? Through forgiveness. Forgiveness not necessarily being charitable, but forgiveness means understanding that pushing those things out of your way so you can get to your higher self and sustain that. That's self-care. When you care that's love, that's self-love, which is way more than a bubble bath. I think you can agree. So at this point, I am going to open it up for anyone who wants to ask questions or talk, or please feel free to come on camera. I almost lost you guys. Yeah. And let's just have a conversation. And if you're familiar with the course, please let us know. And if you have any questions, remember, say whatever section or whatever we want to refer back to it, or any questions. I know it's a lot and it's sort of deep. So I want to welcome Marquis. I see he came on camera to give some comments and thoughts.
To listen.
To listen?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so a quick story while I'm waiting for people. I'm giving everyone time because I know it takes a minute for people to sort of come along. And it's okay if you don't. That's fine. Hopefully, though, you would have gotten something. Marquis, I didn't even know this. Years ago, apparently he and my sister were having a conversation about A Course in Miracles. And it went over my head. I didn't know what they were talking about. I think I probably went to the bathroom or something. I didn't know what they were talking about. And and then later, about 5 years ago, I discovered it. And it sat on my coffee table for about a year. I sort of looked at it. I was like, I'm not. You can't even skip through it because you don't know what it's talking about if you don't sort of start at the beginning and keep going. And then when I started talking to my sister about it, she said, yeah, Marquis and I were talking about that at the family reunion. And I was like, really? Oh, wow, that's amazing. I didn't know. So Marquis was way familiar with this before I was. So it's always interesting when I have a conversation with him that I can sort of speak the same language and still be coming up in this type of understanding of how to be in the truth and be in the higher self. So I'm going to definitely invite him as questions and conversations come up to definitely chime in and help with the conversation. Cynthia, hello. I see you. Did you want to say something?
Not not directly, I guess. I'm just trying to take it all in and then actually look for the book. Um, so and I found, I guess, the paperback version of it to
Okay.
check out.
There
But
are electronic apps for the book if you want it on your phone or your tablet, you can download A Course in Miracles
Mhm.
and have the electronic copy of it.
Okay.
There are some free versions, and then there are some paid versions.
Okay.
Yeah.
I also like to have it to where I take. I'm old school. So
I would say, Cynthia, because you're like me, girl. You see these tabs and bookmarks and all of that. I call it a book for life. You know,
okay.
like if you got a Bible or something, you keep you go you.
Hmm.
This is one you want, and I'm going through the text a second. I'm going through the workbook a second time. I am on less than 169 out of 350, and I'm just some. It's like I can't even believe I went through it once because I'm still getting so much out of it. It's a lot. I love it, and I just wanted to make sure I used it as a way to give some sort of this introduction today. Thank you, Cynthia. And Cynthia, thanks for all of your referrals and advice. Cynthia sent me my invitation to Clubhouse, which I've been talking about a lot today. So it's another door opening. So appreciate you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else have any thoughts, or like was there anything there that was like too much or didn't make sense? And please come off camera and feel free. I'd like to know, was it too much? Did it make sense? Or was it just like, or did you get any little things or pieces? Hey, Sandra, I think I saw you coming in and out, so I don't know how much you caught. What I see you're traveling. What did you think?
Yeah, I need the book. Yeah, so I can follow along. I think that for me, when it's, I mean, everything you say is really meaningful. But I'm a visual and auditory learner, so I have to. So I'm gonna grab the book. I'm gonna order it today.
And that to me, that's I'm already feeling happy that two people on here were intrigued enough, piqued enough to maybe examine it. You know, again, it's not for everyone. It comes to you when you want to fall off, the bookshelf, or it took me a year before I even really got into it. But the fact that there were things there that I was like, this is making so much sense. It is heavy. It's heavy, but I just wanted to, in a way of introduction, the point to take away today for sustainable self-care, the higher self, is forgiveness. That self-care is about way more than the little s. That in following these higher principles is where the truth is and where inner peace exists, which is what we want. And this is just one way, one method, and you can go from this and find whatever ways, but focus on the higher S, the big S for 2021, and you'll find some flow. That's the point, but I just used some context that was already written, just throw it out in a deep way. And what Marcus mentioned, the app, I have 2 apps on my phone. So the way when you're doing the daily meditation, sometimes it says, at the beginning of every hour, repeat this meditation, repeat this. And so I'll use the app because then it can pop up as a notification every hour and stuff like, and they're free apps. So it's a way, to remember and things like that. So there are helpful tools. There is a community out there, and I may start speaking on the wisdoms from this book more.
Okay. Is the app called The Course in Miracles? Or
there's several apps. The 2 I have, one is called ACIM. But yeah, if you go in the App Store and put A Course in Miracles,
okay.
A few people have done them. One, the ACIM workbook is one I have, and one just says ACIM. And this contains the book, the workbook, and the text. I don't know how they got all this in this app. So you might want to just check a couple of them out and see what format plays for you. I don't know, Marcus, did you have one in particular to recommend?
I have I've had several apps over time. I usually get the one that is that doesn't cost me anything, that offers the most. The app I have right now is ACIM. Let me look at it. It's it looks like, where's home? Kind of looks like this.
Yeah, that's the one I have too.
Yeah, it has the
As a
textbook.
butterfly, hand in the butterfly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it
Okay.
has the textbook, the workbook, and the manual for teachers.
Okay.
There are three distinct books. And back in the day, I've had all three distinct books
Hmm.
in my library, and then I have a couple of books where there is the combined volume of the manual for teachers, the textbook for students, and the lessons. The lessons are essentially daily meditations. I would recommend. I mean, you can get a pretty comprehensive app for it that doesn't cost any money.
Okay.
The ones that cost money are more involved with people doing different lessons, and they're doing prescribed lessons. So that I guess a modulation from just the simple lessons that come from the book. It's just conversation and commentary.
Okay.
I was introduced to the Course in Miracles in the late '90s. I think the book emerged in the '70s. I've had the pleasure of being sitting in the room with people I didn't know who were a part of the conversation of the Course in Miracles before it became a manuscript.
Mhm.
Um, it reads like a mystical discourse, very cerebral on Christianity. Uh, if you are an ardent student of the Bible, the Christian Bible, you can find access points in the Course in Miracles. I've had people tell me that if they were not necessarily prominently Christian, or there are a lot of Christians that don't know the Bible
Mhm.
anyway, and they have difficulty getting traction because the language is Christic or Christ oriented. So there's a lot of conversations, a lot of syntax that deals with God, the Father, the Holy Spirit, the Son, and I would encourage women particularly not to be discouraged by the overuse of the masculine pronoun. It was forged in the '70s when that discourse was a bit more dominant, and it may offend some of our sensibilities in terms of how we are trending in the more progressive discourse. But I think the language in and of itself is a way to detox from structural or evangelical Christianity and get access into the spirit of the faith and how
Okay.
we live day to day, as Tanya would say, in self care.
Okay.
But for me, the book actually came to me by a young man who's about 3 to 5 years my junior. I was living in Oklahoma at the
Mhm.
time. Some of you may have heard the name Carlton Pearson, Bishop Carlton Pearson, if you are familiar with Christianity. At the time, it was before his what people would call apostasy, but his nephew was a youth pastor and brought him this book in particular, and he basically just threw the book, said, "Man, don't bring me this book," which might be kind of strange, but he said that, and so the nephew called me and said, "Hey, I got this book. I think you might be interested in." And so I said, "Well, bring it over," because I was kind of a person for wild ideas. I still am.
Mhm.
And when I read the summary of the book, the course can be summed up in this statement: nothing real can be threatened, nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of God. That statement sealed it for me. It was probably one of the most profound statements I'd ever read in my life. Uh, I just found it liberating but also challenging. So I was in from that moment on.
And let me just add on, because the things that Marcus just said there too, and I'm happy to introduce this to you guys because you're going to be telling this story one day to someone. I was introduced to this one day on a Saturday. I remember it sat on my coffee table for a year. I threw it away. I mean, you hear these stories all the time, like, where were you when the spaceship blew up? You know, where were you when whatever? It becomes a part of that because it's just so powerful. Even if you don't soak it in right away, if it's for you, it'll find you. And those wisdoms, it's pretty good. It's pretty amazing. Something else I wanted to add, and I can't remember it. In the meantime, anyone else? So, even if you want to talk about what you're going to do, what your thoughts are for sustainable self care this year, um, um, how you're forgiving or overcoming. I will read a couple of principles of miracles if before I let you go. If no one has anything else, or,
Just have one more question.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So there's the paperback version, and I guess it's by the Foundation for Inner Peace. Is that the?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
And mine has all three in them.
Yeah. This one does.
I would say, for me, and Marcus, I'm interested in how you did it, but doing the workbook first, because when I tried to read the text, it was just so hard at first. But when I did the workbook, then I could go back and sort of get what the text was saying more. And now going through the workbook again, I'm really I'm able to speak the language. And I think that's what I was going to say. It's another part of its training because the language is a little difficult. It's like if you were reading, it's not like the King James Bible, but imagine, trying to read something that's not in your normal dialect.
Mm-hmm.
And so it stops you, it makes you stop. And it'll say, da da da, but for this. And I'm like, but for, and you keep, makes you stop and sort of see things in a few directions. So it's pretty good.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I started with the textbook.
Did you?
Yeah, it took me a minute to realize. I mean, I was kind of a traditional reader. I assumed that it was just one book, and so I started reading from the front.
Oh, okay.
And then after I started skipping around, I realized, there's a workbook for students in here. And so then I'm like, okay, this is interesting. And I realized what it was. I was particularly fascinated with the workbook. Probably the first 10 lessons. It's difficult, and I'll say this, when you're reading the lessons, have you even broached the lessons with them at all, ever? I mean, I didn't hear all the conversation. Well, when you start the lessons, I think the first lesson says, nothing I see in this room is real. And it's a statement that seems absolutely absurd because the first challenge is, of course, everything in this room is real. That is a door. That's a cup. That's a wall. You can't tell me that ain't real. And then after the first 10 lessons, then you kind of see where the deconstruction is going. On my Patreon page, I'm kind of listed as a deconstructionist, a belief deconstructionist. And it's a concept I take from how I related to the Course in Miracles. Those lessons, the workbook, were like deconstructive lessons for me to how to deconstruct how I think, which I found very valuable in experiencing personal freedom and approaching what you term as self-care, is being able to be in the moment and understand how to re-examine what is real versus what is imagined.
Yeah.
Oftentimes our emotions are a reaction to what we imagine, not necessarily what is real.
Right.
And we live more emotionally than we do consciously. So my 2 cents.
And so the way the workbook also is in the Course will say, like the first part is sort of to break you down. It's to unlearn what we think is reality. You got to unlearn it. Like, that cup I see is not there. That you look around for 60 seconds. That's not real. That's not real. Like we said, like what is real is the truth. What is God? That doesn't change. Everything else that's changing is your perception. It's deep. But it also says, don't worry about whether you believe it or not.
Right.
Just keep soaking it in and soaking it in. Keep going because you'll get it. Right? Like that's the miracle. That's the glory of God, because He'll come get you and take you the rest of the way. But this is your willingness. It says you got to be willing. Just be willing, and it'll take you. It's beautiful. And then the second part of the book raises you up, builds you up, and you're just sort of getting it. And so I just more and more, and especially this probably past year since I started doing this again. I started doing this after we finished our wellness journey in the spring, because one of the participants, Delia, was interested and she was going to pick it up. And I said, I think I'm going to do it again too. And she, I think she sort of stopped early on, and I kept going. has been my most powerful year and probably my most needed year for some of these lessons I'm getting. So that's what I have for you today. I want to read you. So I read you some of the preface, what it is, what it summarizes. There's more, but that's just to get you into the self-care mindset. What's real? What's an illusion? A sort of approaching this year with a higher consciousness, quantum unity perception that breaks all molds and changes your mind in a different way. And then chapter 1, page 3, the meaning of miracles. It goes through, I'm not going to read all these. It's 50 things. And I just highlighted some along the way. I didn't even reread them before today, but I see I got some green bullets by some. The first one is, there is no order of difficulty in miracles. One is not harder or bigger than another. They are all the same. All expressions of love are maximal. And so you think about that, like, yeah, a miracle is a miracle. Is it a miracle that I found $100 or that someone parted the Red Sea? You know, like a miracle, whatever the level of miracle. Once you start believing in miracles, then you have access to all the nature of it. Miracles do not matter. The only thing that matters is their source, which is way beyond evaluation. Miracles are healing because they supply a lack. They are performed by those who temporarily have more for those who temporarily have less. The use of miracles as spectacles to induce belief is a misunderstanding of their purpose. And this is one, I wanted to say this. Anyone who's listened to Marianne Williams, who is probably the one who brought me back to this, she ran for president, if anyone was paying. And she also, one of this famous quote that's always given, she became famous because Oprah had her book on the show about 20 years ago. So she's been doing this for about 40 years though, 30, 40 years. And that quote that's often ascribed to Nelson Mandela, it was on Aquila and the Bee, like, who am I? Who are you to think you're da-da-da? I forget how it goes. But who are you not to be, like, by letting your light shine, you give others permission to let their light shine. That was Marianne Williams in her book, of course, A Return to Love. So she used to break it down, and I used to tune into her every Thursday. She would have these talks someplace in New York, and just to help break it down. So it's interesting. But this one, she says all the time, prayer is the medium of miracles. It is a means of communication of the created and the creator. Through prayer, love is received, and through miracles, love is expressed. I love that. So juicy. Anyway, it's like, just that's how it starts off, with these different definitions and ways of thinking and getting that. You know, what's a miracle? How do I access these things? You know, a miracle is a universal blessing from God through me to all my brothers. It is the privilege of the forgiven to forgive. I mean, you could just munch on this stuff just all day. So I'm gonna leave that. Let me see. I saw something in the chat. Oh, okay. Absolutely. Anyone who wants to do a one-on-one, and especially, I'm really trying to encourage people to go through Patreon as well, but that is not necessary for now. Just text me. And then we can talk about, and this year I think I'll be doing more one-on-ones, because I think people are challenged with the technology on Patreon sometimes. People have their different levels of comfort. And so I think this year too, I just want to open up to doing more one-on-one coaching or teaching outside of any platform. So I'm available for that too. I actually love that, because it's really, in the giving is the receiving. So you get a dedicated amount of time to have a one-on-one. So yes, if you want to have a one-on-one, and actually you can text me now or today, and we can set something up and continue in the conversation and keep going forward.
Going to get to the root of your issue. And when I told her, and I felt this lift off my shoulders, and I began to say, okay, I got something.
Okay, I wasn't sure if someone was asking a question or not, but maybe accidentally came off of mute. So with that, my beautiful people, going once and going, I'm about to be, So, we do this every second Saturday. We do it through Patreon for Patreon members. Again, I invite other people from time to time who I think might benefit or might want to come to the community or back to the community, because I'm always doing talks, conversations. I put videos on there. I do book recommendations. Like today would have been a long one, but I did one the other day. I might have put it on Instagram. If you're not familiar with Rumi, if you like to read poets, a philosopher, mystic, you hear a lot of quotes from Rumi. If you don't even know, pay attention now. You'll be like, oh, that's who she was talking about. There's just so many other nuggets of wisdoms and places to go. And I just want to help be a resource so everyone can access, the best that you can. Okay. All right. I will, if anyone has any questions and doesn't want to do it with the group, just hang on a little bit longer and I will stay on here. I see a couple direct chats. I will stay on here a bit longer to answer any individual questions or go from there. And so keep joining me. We are going to, the last thing I want to be sure, we haven't planned it yet, but we are going to start a new wellness journey, a 60-day journey. Like I've done it twice a year since I started this. The first 3 were on the 7 intentions. The last one was a spiritual journey, Dream a New Dream. We discussed the nature of reality. This one may be a combination of both. So we're going to take it up to the next level and combine all the things that we've done. We need a reboot with the 7 intentions, living this life with meditation and self-care and mindful eating. And because 2020 was hard and 2021 hasn't started off so great. So we want to go ahead and just forgiveness, put it all aside in a practice, and it's going to, a 60-day journey. So keep an eye out for that. I'm going to pull it up this year because I feel like it's needed. It'll probably start at the end of February, beginning of March, but if you're interested, let me know anyway. So when we're putting out emails and inviting people and signing people up, we don't forget you. Okay? All right, my friends, I love you. Love and light.